And welcome in, everyone, to a new edition of the Sick Podcast. Trust the process. It's Monday, which means we're talking Montreal Canadiens. The first roster cuts have gone through. Everyone's cleared waivers. We're going to talk about who's left on the team and who's going to the Rocket, who's impressed so far in preseason, who hasn't. And I think, Snake, our last show is pretty valuable and kind of gave a glimpse as to the two Toronto games, essentially the Rocket beating the Leafs and the Marlies beating the Habs. We'll talk about all of that good stuff. We're also going to get to our mailbag fan question, and I got a little special fantasy segment cooked up for you guys today. So without further ado, let's get to it.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. Trust the process. The sickest NHL prospect podcast with Snake and Shayne.
With the 5th overall selection in the 2024 NHL Draft, the Montreal Canadiens are proud to select Ivan Demidov.
It's gonna be sick.
That's right. Producer Shayne here, as always, joined by my co-host, the great Simon, the Snake, Boisvert. Snake, how are we feeling today?
I'm doing great. How about you, Shayne?
Can't complain. Everything's good. Real hockey is around the corner, but junior hockey has gone on the way now. So junior hockey has now started. So on our Thursday shows, we'll be able to talk a little more actualities. Except for this Thursday, however. We already teased our topic for this Thursday, and I'm really excited about it. But back to today now, Monday. Obviously, we're talking Habs. And Snake, I think, you know what, to link it back to our Thursday show, it was very apropos, considering what we saw transpire in the last two games. The Toronto Marlies, let's put it this way, beat the Montreal Canadiens 7-2. And then the Laval Rocket beat the Toronto Maple Leafs 4-2, further enhancing our point, Snake, that preseason means absolutely nothing. It is not a good indicator whatsoever.
I'm glad it's almost over.
Yeah.
And
more to
now roster cuts are gonna come very quickly, like more roster cuts. And probably on the last preseason game, you're gonna have the definitive lineup, so that teams can do a little dress rehearsal, warm up before the season. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's been a long training camp. I mean, it's only been 2 weeks since the rookie games, but I feel like it's been 2 months. 2 months of debating, whether Beck or Kapanen should start the year in Montreal or not.
Yeah, well, we're not quite done yet, because we are going to talk about those two players, because they are among the few that are still with the team when we're talking about prospects, right? Rookies. It's only really 3 left. You can count Adam Engstrom as well, but, it's pretty deep at defense. But really, it's Florian Jacki, Owen Beck, and Oliver Kapanen, who are still with the team, rightfully so. I think we can both agree on that. But for how much longer? And who will be, if any of them, on opening night, right? You have to consider the fact that Joe Veleno and Sami Blais have to go through waivers if they're going to be sent down. So does that play a role in who's kept, right? If one of them, really impresses in the next 2 games, maybe they earn a spot. What do you think we're going to see here, Snake, in the coming week?
I think teams worry a lot, or fans maybe, about the waiver wire, because most guys don't get claimed. I mean, look at yesterday. Everybody cleared. 2 days ago, everybody cleared. And you're starting to see, I wouldn't call them very well-known players being cut, but still, draft picks who have been around for at least 3 years on the team, and they just go through waivers and no one claims them. So I don't know about Veleno and Sami Blais, but what these guys bring to the table for a team. Let's say that a team wants a genuine fourth liner, an NHL fourth liner. Veleno is the guy. He might give you 5 to 10 goals. He knows his way around the game. So, he could be claimed. Sami Blais, it's another story. I know he spent a whole year in the AHL, but he has NHL experience, and he's a tough guy. So again, there could be a team. Oh, well, our tough guy is injured. Let's get him. Let's say, I'm just saying anything, but since they're going to get the first claim, San Jose. Okay.
Right.
Let's say Ryan Reeves gets injured. And they might say, okay, let's bring in Sammy Blais and see what happens. And then maybe the guy goes back on waivers, 3 months later. But the point is, they could be claimed. And I understand why the Canadiens, although they're not worth much on the trade market, you don't want to lose them for nothing. Whereas with Beck and Kapanen and Jacky, you can always send them down and call them back.
Exactly. Doesn't cost anything.
There's going to be injuries. There's going to be injuries. Mm-hmm. So far, so good, except for Reinbacher. But there's going to be injuries at some point. And these guys, whoever is sent down, will probably get the call at some point during the season. So whether Beck or Kapanen starts the season in Montreal, look, it's just an opening night roster when you think about it.
Right, that's it. It's always going to change. And you know what? With if people start freaking out and say, "Oh, you sent down Fleury and you sent down Owen," it's not a big deal. They're going to have time to prove themselves in Laval and ultimately earn a call-up, right? The opening night roster is not going to be the roster you're going to see at the end of the year. It's not going to be the roster you're going to see the whole season. It's just opening night, and there is strategy involved in who is still there. Now, Snake, you mentioned an interesting name briefly there. David Reinbacher, once again, for the second straight year, injured in preseason against the Toronto Maple Leafs. I mean, next year he better not play a game against the swear to God. But it's a fluke injury. We saw the video. Puck hit his hand. People saying, "Oh, he's made of glass. He's made of chocolate. This guy sucks. Shouldn't have been picked 5th overall." Come on,
yeah,
breaks. Okay, anybody would have gotten their hand broken by that. Ask Brandon Gallagher.
Look, I think maybe a guy like Aiden Gooley. There are analysts or commentators that I've heard them say, well, he doesn't protect himself very well and stuff. And, there's an argument because the guy has been injured. But Reinbacher this weekend, you can't say he's injury prone because of this bad luck. Okay, of course, these bad lucks never seem to happen to, in the past, guys like Patrick Marleau, Nick Suzuki, who's played every game, I think, since he joined the NHL. Maybe one day he'll beat that Phil Kessel record. Phil Kessel owns the record, right? 1,000 games or something. Maybe he'll beat that record. It's possible. But no, Reinbacher was just unlucky. And it's 4 weeks. So hopefully by November 1st, he'll be back in Laval. Now we know he's going to play in Laval, because he'll need some conditioning and everything. And probably let's see what happens for November, December. And if he really, really performs well, like I think he did at the end of the year, at some point, I think he'll get more than a cup of coffee in Montreal. I wouldn't be surprised if Reinbacher played, I don't know, between 15, 20 games in Montreal at some point this year.
That'd be good. That'd be really good. Very encouraging for his development. And hopefully would help shut up the people who keep clamoring that it was the wrong pick. It was the wrong pick. We haven't seen him play an NHL game yet. Okay. Emphasis on yet. Wait until he actually does to make your judgment. Word of advice for the people watching. Okay. You're entitled to your opinion. You might have wanted Michkov. You probably still do want Michkov. Wait until you can compare apples to apples. All right. You can't compare Rocket Reinbacher to Flyers Michkov. It's not the same thing, right? No. It's completely different. So
obviously one is ahead of the other because he has one very good NHL season under his belt. And at some point this has to be considered, because I've noticed that sometimes we wait after players for years and years and years. And then if they become good at age 25, we all say, oh, you see, we were right to wait for him. Yeah, but in the meantime, the player you're comparing him to maybe has been performing for 4 or 5 years in the NHL. Like I remember the Kotkaniemi debate. Oh, well, he's young. Okay, he's young. But in the meantime, Quinn Hughes and Brady Tkachuk are really doing well. So I think when you think about it, you can only evaluate someone's career when the career's over.
Yeah.
Because some players really extended and they're good for many, many years. Mm-hmm. So that has to count also. If a guy like, Joe Pavelski, for instance, he was good until the age of 40. So that counts for something. And some players are very, very good at the beginning for 5-6 years before others become good. That has to count for something too. So really, the Michkov Reinbacher, if you want to be like really a purist, you're only going to analyze all this in 15 years when it's all said and done, because you never know. But I think realistically, because, we're on this, we live in a world where, there's a lot of instant takes,
Yeah.
and people freak out after one bad period from a goalie. I think realistically, between 5 and 7 years after the draft, you see where it's going in general.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And this was the 2023 draft. I want to remind everyone that we are in 2025. It's not been that long. So cautionary tale. But Snake, let's talk a little bit about the players who were cut from the team. Notable names, obviously, in the prospect pool. Joshua Roy did not make the first cut. Philip Meshar, even though a lot of people were pleasantly surprised by his performance. Again, still needs time in Laval. I think we can all agree on that. Sean Farrell today was, I guess, the name to look out for, because he was waiver eligible, so he could have been claimed, wasn't. So he'll be going to Laval. Jared Davidson, Riley Kidney, Luke Tuck. Tyler Thorpe is going back to the Vancouver Giants, and obviously Jacob Fowler. I think we could all see that one coming.
Yeah, most players are on their entry-level contract anyway.
Exactly. Makes sense.
But I think for Farrell, one thing that I have in mind, I know we finished the season very well in the AHL, and I think every team is aware that the guy is talented, but he plays on the periphery quite a bit for someone who's small. He's not that fast. So in the NHL, I think it's a no-no. However, one might say, okay, well, why doesn't San Jose or Chicago or a very bad team take a chance on him?
Yeah.
Well, the reason is every team has a Sean Farrell on their American Hockey League roster that they could promote. So why claim another one? Yeah. And I think that's the reason. When you look at the rosters, guys like him, I mean, there's probably, like I say, one per team. And so I think he could have a good career in the AHL, in the sense that at some point, these veterans, when they get on their second and third contract, they kind of have leverage. They can go to Europe, and teams have a tendency to like these offensive veteran players to pair up with the 20-year-old youngsters that they bring in.
Right.
And look at the Alex Belzile, for instance. And these guys, they don't make $75,000 in the AHL. There's a lot of guys who get these $300,000-$500,000. The high end performers, veteran, I think it's not a bad career. Or you go to Europe, you make that same kind of money. So I think I don't think Sean Farrell, unless he wants to quit hockey. I mean, I think if he wants to stay around, he's gonna have a decent career as a hockey player, but just not in the NHL.
No, that's it. And maybe he could get a call up here and there as well. He could be a fine sort of call up if a top six player gets injured, right?
Yeah.
In that kind of situation. But like you said, Snake, he's not a fourth liner. He's got to understand his role. He's a top six offensive player, but you know what? Like it's gonna need another big step for the NHL, unfortunately for him. But hey, all the better for the Laval Rocket, because they get to get him back, and he was excellent for them last year. So
yeah, because you know it's important for the Laval Rocket to have good veteran players to pair up with the youngsters.
Exactly.
I mean, I know it's a development league. You want to give as much ice time as you can to the Becks and the Kapanens and the Jack Eyes of the world, but I think ideally, it's always good to, let's say on a line, to have a good veteran player with two youngsters. So sometimes we're talking about roster building in the NHL, but we don't talk about roster building in the American Hockey League. And I do think that ideally, in an ideal world, you have two good youngsters and a veteran, two good youngsters and a veteran, two good youngsters and a veteran, let's say on the top 9. Mm-hmm. And Farrell at some point could be that kind of guy, like Alex Belzile is.
Yeah. I like it.
And Lucas Condata, or So I think the Laval Rocket will have a pretty good season again this year. And just the fact that they have Jacob Fowler in net, you can be a last place team in the AHL with Jacob Fowler in net. So I think it's going to be fun for the fans in Laval. Now, Are there any superstars in Laval, future superstars on offense? No, but we all know that superstars generally either don't play in the American Hockey League or they barely play. And I'm talking forwards. I'm not talking defenders and goalies. Goalies can be there. Vasilevsky was there for a while. You know what I mean? It's it's a different story. But with forwards, Caulfield played 10 games? Suzuki never played. Slavkovsky never played. Demidov is not going to play.
Yeah.
So, you have to take it for what it is. But if you can develop good third and fourth liners, but especially good goalies and defensemen, I think it's a success. And again, it's good entertainment. I mean, Laval, the arena has been packed for years and years and years. And last year they came very close to making it to the finals. I think they were in the final four,
semifinals.
Semifinals. And this year, interesting to follow Jacob Fowler. I think if there's one guy you want to follow in Laval for the future who could become an impact player with the Habs, it's Jacob Fowler.
Absolutely, no doubt about that. And folks, let me remind everybody. Okay, that the Sick Podcast Network and the Sick Media Network is now a proud partner of the Laval Rocket. That's right. We are now the French play-by-play voice for the Laval Rocket. Cédric Blondin, Vincent Demuy will be at the description there. Make sure you listen to them. They are top-notch. Very proud to be associated with the Laval Rocket this year. But continuing on now, a player who will not be reporting to the Laval Rocket, and I'd love to get your opinion on him, Snake, is Tyler Thorpe. 6'5" power forward, understands his role, right? Is able to contribute offensively, but knows that he has to be a beast physically. And in preseason, again, not a great, place to evaluate players, but you can still, notice signs of, okay, there's something there. This is interesting. Like he brings a dimension that other players don't. And I think that's why a lot of Habs fans are excited about him. Like, oh, this is interesting. Later round pick usually doesn't pan out, but if this guy could, hey, how about that? What do you think about Tyler Thorpe?
Well, that's the thing about these guys. I agree with the assessment you just made of him. However, I think, when you draft players, there are players that are easier to evaluate than others, although teams make mistakes, analysts, we all make mistakes. But there are players that you can be more confident about their future when you analyze them. The guys like Tyler Thorpe they're kind of a coin flip. The reason is you always wonder at this age when they play junior hockey, if they only dominate because of their size, and in the NHL, they're going to lose a little bit of that edge because there are some big guys in the NHL, and B, can they play hockey? Because right now the game is fast, and there are enforcers from the past that could absolutely not play in the NHL right now.
No.
So the guy has to have a minimum, and you look at older guys like Ryan Reeves. It was okay for a while, but now he's pushing 40, and you can tell he can't follow. I don't know how the Sharks are going to use him this year. Maybe 2 minutes a game when they play another team that has an enforcer. I don't know. But the point is, or maybe it's just for leadership in the dressing room. Who knows? But the point is, you don't know if these guys can play hockey because they're very, very hard to evaluate as junior players because sometimes they actually score goals because they push their way around. So I think they're a good bet when you draft, because when you draft in the later rounds, you always gonna want to go for some kind of home run. Could be a goalie, could be a small guy, a la LG Mooney, let's say, or it could be a big guy like Tyler Thorpe, because you're thinking, hey, if he pans out, maybe he might not be Milan Lucic, but you can have a fourth liner who's going to be tough in the playoffs because can chip in 3-4 goals a year and not look lost on the ice.
Right.
So I think it's too early to judge. I don't know. I know you asked me what I think of Tyler Thorpe, but I'm giving you this big explanation to tell you that I don't know. But they're good bets at the draft table, I would say. Chances are he won't make it. Let's face it. Chances are. But let's see. He's going back to junior hockey, and I agree with you. In the preseason, he still played against men in the preseason. I know it's not the same intensity as the NHL playoffs, but he still played against men. Didn't play junior hockey, and he's very, very imposing physically.
No, that's it. And I like the way that he uses his size, right? I think, Snake, you can agree. There's very few things as frustrating as a big player who doesn't use his size. A la Patrick Laine, for example, who is also 6'5", but doesn't use his size. Again, he's got a different role. He's more offensive. I get that. But it is still frustrating to see this giant on the ice just let himself kind of get tossed around, whereas Tyler Thorpe was doing the tossing. And I really like his puck protection. I think he can create offense with his size, with mobile as well, for a big guy. I think he moves well. So all of that, I think, to say, you know what, keep an eye on him in Vancouver this year. We're definitely going to talk about him throughout the season whenever, he stands out in Vancouver. But this is, again, a good gamble late round for the Canadiens, as you mentioned. So all the best to Tyler Thorpe. And I think, we'll be seeing more of him shortly, probably as soon as next year in Laval. I think he's a good bet to make it. Snake, before we move on now, I'd like to ask, if we could play a little game, if you will, which player, we can cheat and say players, would you say rose in your esteem, and which ones would you say went down in your esteem in the short period of time here at training camp, prospect-wise?
Like I told you last week, Sean, I do not use preseason as an evaluation tool. So basically, I was trying to break you.
I was trying to break you there.
I'm not answering that question because my mind doesn't change either way vis-a-vis, the Becks and the Kapanens. And I think they are who they are. That's my opinion. And I'll give you a better assessment, perhaps, let's say November. Once I see them play in Laval, settle down, or if they play in Montreal, one of them might play in Montreal, then I'll give you a better assessment. For now, no one has really rose or gone down, or I'm just like patiently waiting for the season to start.
Yeah, real hockey. But Snake, I think you actually did give the right answer. The answer I agree with, being that, you know what, like I don't think anybody really stood out so much that you're like, wow, okay, this player is something. And at the opposite end, there's no one really that looked so bad that you're like, what the hell is this? I think everyone kind of just played how they play. Like, again, it's not an indicator. So I think that was the right answer. I was trying to trick you there, see if you would fall for my trap. But you know what? I'll still invite the people watching to answer my question. If you did notice someone who really impressed you, or on the opposite end, again, really disappointed you, let us know in the comments. We'd love to know. We'd love to interact with you. And as always, send in your questions, folks. We got a great question here today for the mailbag. I can't wait to get to it. Send in your questions. We're going to get to one every single show, so we might get to yours. Before we move on, Snake, I think it's time to give a big thank you, of course, to our partners who make this show possible. And I want to start off with our friends over at Cheapest T-Shirts. I'm going to go shopping on there later today, so I'm very excited.
I'm wearing one, by the way.
I like it. There we go. It's good stuff, eh? It's good stuff. I got a winter coat and sweatpants a while back, so I love the stuff at Cheapest T-Shirts. I'm going to go back on there today because I need some clothes. And folks, if you're in the same category as me, right? If you're looking for the cheapest clothing prices in all of Canada, you will find them at cheapesttshirts.ca. It's in the name, all right? Proudly Canadian and trusted by thousands of customers from coast to coast. They deliver unbeatable value every day. You'll always get the cheapest prices, plus same-day shipping and even next-day delivery, so your order arrives fast. Cheapesttshirts.ca is the go-to source for teams, businesses, events, apparel printing companies, and resellers. And it's also perfect for just individual shoppers who want the best deals on everyday apparel. Plus, enjoy free shipping on larger orders and a simple, easy-to-use website that makes online ordering a breeze. Get the cheapest deals in Canada today at cheapesttshirts.ca. I hope none of you were betting on the Titans. Sorry, Sammy and Juliana. But if you did, you probably lost some money. Guess what? It's okay if you're on Betway, because if you lose your first bet, you can get up to $200 on Betway. If you scan the QR code on the screen or click on the link in the details section to create an account and redeem your welcome offer. The offer is only available for new customers. Terms and conditions apply. The offer is not available in Ontario. Of course, you must be 18 years or older. Please play responsibly. Snake, I want to get to a little fantasy segment. So why don't we go to the fantasy report? Woo, chills. That was beautiful. All right, folks. Your drafts are probably happening or have happened, but don't worry, I got you. Okay. Today we're talking goalies, and this is good for people who have drafted or are about to draft. Listen carefully. When we're talking goalie strategy here, okay, goalies can win or lose your league, so make sure you do this smartly. 3 points I want to get to. The first is off-day games. The importance of off-day games, okay, meaning Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, and Sundays, is that most of the games are being played on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. So you want to avoid your goalies all playing at the same time, right? Because nothing's worse than leaving your goalie on your bench and getting a shutout. That hurts. That hurts a lot. So if you follow this model here, made by an amazing content creator called Data Driven Hockey on Instagram, please go check out his content. It is really, really helpful fantasy-wise, but this is extremely helpful for your goalies, especially. When you look at the top end of the spectrum here, the Anaheim Ducks play 41, half of their games, as well as the Utah Mammoth, on off days. And at the bottom end of the spectrum, the Montreal Canadiens only play 22, which means they mostly only play on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. You want diversity in this draft, okay? In this graph, sorry. So let's say, for example, a guy like Lucas Dostal from the Anaheim Ducks, who I drafted because of this model, he's going to play 41 games on off days, which means if you have, for example, Samuel Montembeault from the Montreal Canadiens, well, they probably won't play as many games at the same time, which means you'll always have goalies in rotation. Take a screenshot of this, save the image, keep this for your fantasy league this year. Whether you've drafted your goalies or not yet, you can make trades, try to get some goalies here and there to balance your graph, okay? I want some guys at the top, but I also want some guys at the bottom and some in the middle. To give you an example, I drafted Lucas Dostal, who's got 41 off-day games. I also got Mackenzie Blackwood from the Colorado Avalanche, who has 35. And at the bottom end, I got Linus Ullmark from the Senators, who has 26. I'm very comfortable with my goalies here. I hope you follow this as well. Second point, tandems and back-to-backs. Let's bring up the chart of back-to-back games this year. Now, because of the Olympics, the NHL schedule is very condensed, which means there are more back-to-backs this season. You see those top teams, San Jose, Pittsburgh, Islanders, Montreal, LA Kings, they all have 16 back-to-backs this year. At the bottom end, you have Winnipeg and Calgary, who have 9. What this means is that you might want to be interested in the tandem, meaning, for example, Montreal, you could have Samuel Montembeault and Jakub Dobeš or Kakkonen, whoever makes the team. You know what I mean? You could have both on your team, meaning you would always get the games. The more back-to-backs, meaning the more backup goalies play. Now, tandems that I am more interested in, not every tandem is good, okay? Let's be honest here. But I'm looking at Toronto and I'm looking at Carolina, all right? Carolina's got Freddie Anderson and Kochetkov, and in Toronto, they have Stolars and Woll. I think those are tandems that are going to be mostly split, maybe a little extra for a specific goalie. But you see here on the chart, Toronto has 15 back-to-backs, and Carolina also has 15 back-to-backs. I like those tandems a lot. Again, take a screenshot of this, save that image, go back throughout the season. You don't necessarily have to draft a backup goalie, but you can stream them on the waiver wire. I would definitely keep this in mind when you're building your goaltender strategy. Third point, divisional goalies. This is a personal preference, but I see the merit in this. You want to avoid divisional goalies, meaning I don't want Samuel Montembeault, Linus Ullmark, and Andrei Vasilevsky on my team because they're going to cannibalize wins. You're guaranteed a win, but you're also guaranteed a loss. You want the goalies in different divisions. You don't want your goalies to be playing each other. All right. You want as many wins as possible, folks. Remember that. But again, that one's more of a personal preference. If you have, Ullmark and Vasilevsky and another goalie, that's fine. Just go on based on the better goalies. That's a given. But these are 3 key points when I'm building my goalie strategy in fantasy that I'm always keeping tabs of. Let me know if I missed any in the comments, folks. I want to hear who you got in your fantasy teams. Who are your goalies? But Snake, I want to ask you, which NHL goalie tandem are you most interested in this season?
Just to remind you, you probably saw that on Twitter. Isn't Joe Wool taking a leave of absence for now?
For now, yes. We don't know when he'll be back.
We don't know when he's going to be back. I think when you're talking about tandems, do you mean like both on the same team or just a regular and a backup?
Both on the same team. Like, the examples I gave, let's say Carolina, right, with Freddie Anderson and Kochetkov, they kind of split games a little bit. They don't really know who's the number one, right? They kind of balance it out, ride the hot hand, and sometimes, obviously on back-to-backs they'll split, but that's kind of what I was getting at.
Well, first of all, you have to look at a team that wins a lot of games. And also you have to look for a team that splits the games as much as possible, because Vasilevsky is going to play most of the games, and he does play back-to-back games sometimes. So I think from what I'm looking at, I would say that your choice of Carolina is probably the best.
Mm-hmm.
I would also think, I'm thinking of teams that, can split. Although he plays more games, maybe some guy like New Jersey, like Malmstrom and Jake Allen, or did Jake Allen play a lot because Malmstrom got injured? That's another question. But right now it's like a 50-30 kind of split, but they're going to win lots of games. So I think, Carolina, Jersey, everyone else, they mostly play, Columbus, they're going to play the same guy for 50 some games. The Islanders are obviously playing Sorokin for, I don't know, maybe 60 games. Edmonton, you never know. I mean, they're going to win games, but who do you choose? Might be a guy they claim off waivers at some point. Justin Walton, Calgary, is going to play a lot. Vancouver, I don't think they're going to win enough games. So, I would go with Carolina and New Jersey. How about the Senators?
Marolainen. I considered him. Marolainen.
Ullmark, is going to play quite a few games, maybe with Marolainen. I know last year they had Forsberg, who played lots of games. So I would say Carolina, New Jersey, question mark for Ottawa. That would be the 3 teams I would consider for what you just mentioned.
I like it. But personally speaking, I've never really been a fan of tandems because I don't like having a backup goalie who doesn't play a lot of games take up a roster spot on my team. I'd rather have a forward or a defenseman who's going to play every game, get me points here and there. But if you're in a setting where you have 3 goalies and 2 of them are from the same team, you know what? Like Snick mentioned, Carolina, New Jersey is a good one too. I like Markstrom and Allen. I think that's a great thing. I'm all about it, especially this year, right? In the past, there's been less back-to-backs. This year is really condensed. We're going to see the backup goalies front and center, and the waiver wire is going to be hot. So keep your eye on the goalies you want, okay? Make sure you claim them early on. That's going to be a key to winning your leagues this year. It's between the pipes, folks. I can't stress this enough. Those charts I showed before, screenshot them. Please do yourself a favor. It will help you. Thank you, by the way, to Data Driven Hockey on Instagram for that one. Without further ado, I think it is time to dig in the mailbag. All right, and our question today comes from Giovanni. His question for Snake: which teams should go on a full rebuild in the next 3 years, and which will? And thank you for the kind words, by the way, Giovanni. We appreciate it. So basically, the question is, Snake, it's kind of what we're going to be talking about on Thursday, but we can give a little preview here for our friend Giovanni here. Which teams do you think should go on a rebuild first?
There are different types of rebuilds. Like there are some teams that are at a certain point in the standings where you feel they're not going to win the cup, but they're not that bad. But if they unload their good assets, they can rebuild a very, very interesting database of prospects.
Right.
There are teams that basically have no choice because they're going down the drain.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the ones that are going down the drain are usually the ones that do a rebuild. It's very rare that you'll have a team that is like, I would say average at some point, like San Jose, who's going to trade players like Timo Meier and Thomas Hertl, Eric Carlson, guys who could still help. But I think at some point, Mike Greer probably told the owner, look, we're not going to win with these guys. No. We're barely going to make the playoffs if we do. We're not going to bottom out, but we're not going to draft very high either. So they decided to clean house, and they got to draft very high.
Yeah.
So that's usually teams who do this, they're at the bottom. They have no choice.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the question is, and we're going to go in depth on Thursday about explaining the types of rebuilds, what I just said, and in more detail, why San Jose did it, why Chicago did it, why some teams didn't do it, because ownership has a lot to do with it, I would assume. And right now, I would say the team that is most likely to go on a full rebuild at some point, because we got hints from the GM, although they still have the iconic Sidney Crosby, is Pittsburgh.
That's an obvious one.
When will this happen? They're already not very good. They had some high draft picks. I think, again, they'll have high draft picks, but probably not unless they win the lottery. I don't think they're going to get Gavin McKenna unless they win the lottery like, I did last year. Yeah. Now, the teams that should, and again, I'm going to explain to you because I know there's a lot of fans of that team here in Quebec, and they're probably going to freak out until Thursday. The Boston Bruins should.
Absolutely.
But I'll explain on Thursday because it's not as dark as what might think. They have some good prospects right now. They have some good prospects, but I think if they trade the older players who have a lot of value, they will obviously bottom out for a couple of years, but then they can go up again. But we'll talk about it on Thursday. But I know it's kind of sacrilegious to say that Boston should go on a rebuild because they practically never did. They had a couple of high picks when they got Phil Kessel a few years ago, but Tyler Seguin, but that was because of the trade with Toronto.
Yeah.
So So because they won the cup the year after. So, Buffalo. Then I think there's a third category we should talk about is the teams that miss the boat.
Oh,
Detroit, for instance. Could have gone on a full
plan,
not to, and now they're going to be in the middle of the pack forever. So I think that's the third category we should talk about. So I think the teams that will, I think for sure, I think Pittsburgh will. I think the teams that should are Boston, the Rangers, obviously. They still have, but look, Panarin is aging. They have some aging players. They got rid of, True Buck Ryder for nothing, practically. Yeah. So I think that's a team that should. And I think that's pretty much it, because there are teams like, well, I was going to say Vancouver, but haven't they gone through a rebuild that didn't work? Really? What are they going to do with Quinn Hughes? Is he going to leave for New Jersey? I think we're all going to sort this out. The yes, the shoulds, the maybes, the miss the boat. And those who miss the boat really are going to be caught in the middle of the pack. And this is in professional sports with 32 league teams. This is a killer.
Oh, yeah.
For fans, because really either you want a contender or you want hope. Like, the Habs 3 years ago, they bottomed out, but they were selling hope. And you know what? It's fun now to see them climb up. The San Jose Sharks, it's going to be fun this season. They're going to be bad, but they have Celebrini, they have Smith, they have Michael Misa, maybe Sam Dickinson. So you go to the games and you're thinking, wow, one day this could be good. Maybe it won't, but at least you have hope. You go see the Red Wings. Okay, they have good players, but okay, can we win the cup with, Lucas Raymond as your best player, best forward? He's very good, but you know what I mean. I mean, there's not much besides him and Dylan Larkin, and they drafted a lot of, I would say, third liners. Nate Danielson, Michael Rasmussen. They drafted a lot of role players very high in the top 10. Philip Zadina was a big mistake.
Oh,
instead of local boy Quinn Hughes, who was playing at Michigan. So we'll get into this on Thursday, but I think Pittsburgh is the obvious answer.
Yeah. I love this question. I love this discussion. I can't wait for Thursday.
Have fun on Thursday.
Oh my God.
And
I have so many questions.
Don't forget to challenge me, Shayne. I want you to be mad at me sometimes.
Don't worry. So, listen.
Tony gets mad at me all the time. He got mad at me about Mayu. He got mad at me about Caden Primo. I mean, now he's hiding and I'm laughing, but,
Time will tell. But I'm an open-minded person, Snake, and
I know.
What?
I'm kidding.
I love your opinions. I love your takes. So far, the only challenge I've given you was for the preseason games, but we kind of came to an agreement there as well. I can't wait for this discussion on rebuilds, though, because it's so fascinating. I mean, every team has a different situation. No two rebuild are the same. And like you said, you want to avoid that dreaded gray area of just this cycle of nothing, right? Drafting in the middle, average players not being very good, and that keeps going and going and going until you commit to the rebuild and sell off. I love these situations. That's exactly what the Habs did. That's what I'm hoping to see more of for a few teams, and you mentioned a few there. So, Giovanni, thank you for your question. We hope you're tuning in on Thursday because we're going to dive all over it. There are teams right now doing rebuilds that are not doing a good job. There are teams that are supposed to be coming out of the rebuilds that aren't. There are teams that are coming out of the rebuilds faster than they were supposed to, right? It's so much fun to watch. I love that topic. Snake, I know you do too. So, folks, what you got to do is subscribe, right? You got to subscribe. You got to turn on the notification bell so that when Thursday's episode drops, you are notified and you are the first to watch. You know what? Hit the hype button. I still not sure what it does, but do it anyways because it helps apparently. So I'll keep pushing that one. As always, thank you to Betway and Cheapest T-shirts as well for making this show possible, and thank you to Sammy and Juliana over at Master Control. Snake, anything else to add before we wrap this one up?
Well, I still think that you're nuts thinking that Macklin Celebrini is not going to be a point per game player this year.
Fantasy, I know. He's overrated. And by the way, I am trying to trade for him in one of my leagues. I love the guy. Please,
okay, you're full of contradictions.
But he's being drafted too high. I will stand by that, though. He is being drafted too high.
Talk to the hand.
All right. For Simon the Snake, I am producer Shayne. Thank you for tuning in. This has been another great edition of the Sick Podcast. Trust the process. We'll see you Thursday.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast, Trust the Process on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.